Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our FHIRplace overview and demo. Let me begin by introducing myself and Timothy Bennett. Timothy Bennett is our Director of Strategic Healthcare Initiatives who focuses on the intersection of healthcare policy and technical implementation of our FHIR programs. I'm Lisa Palmer, VP of Research and Development, where I lead Drummond's work in interoperability and product strategy. We have three main areas to cover in today's presentation. First, Drummond conducted a market study across health IT ecosystems and identified key areas where we see interoperability gaps. Then, I'm going to provide an overview of FHIRplace, which is Drummond's solution for real-world FHIR testing, and discuss how it helps fill those interoperability gaps. Finally, we will end with a demonstration of FHIRplace and how it offers a pathway to support true interoperability. Drummond recently conducted a study on FHIR interoperability testing practices across health IT organizations. We think the findings are worth paying attention to, and I'm going to share some of the key highlights from this market report. Nearly 68 respondents identified partner readiness as their single biggest interoperability risk. So not a technical gap, but an ecosystem gap. And over 70% rated real-world testing with external partners as very or critically important. Organizations know what they need. The challenge is actually getting access to it. We also asked participants how frequently they use testing approaches, and the pattern was clear. Internal and self-testing is nearly universal. Almost everyone does it. But when it comes to external validation, things like connectathons or third-party audits, the usage does drop off significantly. We have a quote from one of our survey participants that really captures something important. Connectathons do serve a real purpose. We think they're valuable and they're a great starting point for validating how a FHIR IG can be implemented and how structured data exchanges between the systems. But as this respondent put it, they don't emulate real-world environments where you have multiple systems and disparate network environments actually sharing data. That's a real meaningful gap between we tested at a connectathon and we're ready for production. Finally, when we asked participants to identify their top barriers, 2 of them rose to the top, and each one was cited by roughly half of the respondents: time constraints and access to testing partners. These aren't surprising, and they do align with the very things that organizations need most: partners to test with and the time to do it. But as shown earlier, those can actually be 2 of the hardest things to come by. Now, the details of what I've shared and the full Drummond report can be found here. With that, I want to shift into talking about how Drummond is helping to address some of these issues through FHIRplace. So what is FHIRplace? FHIRplace is a Drummond-managed virtual environment where FHIR developers, providers, payers, and intermediaries test real-world interoperability use cases together at scale. Here is how it works. Drummond coordinates this testing using an automated full matrix testing approach. This means trading partners test against each other in a simulated real-world environment. The purpose is not only to prove conformance or compliance to the standards, but to demonstrate interoperability with all entities in the marketplace. We bring together all major players in the healthcare ecosystem, the payer side, the provider side, and intermediaries, and we allow them to test in whatever stage of interoperability they're ready to begin. We understand that participants may be on different versions, or they might have different FHIR capabilities implemented altogether. We try to meet them where they are, and then we allow them to continue to test over the life cycle of their product as it matures and changes are made. This helps participants identify and resolve defects and interoperability issues in any stage of the development process. Because Drummond is managing these multi-party tests, we help discover, mediate, and resolve these issues as they surface. FHIRplace is currently testing electronic prior authorization, and we have done payer-to-payer data exchange as well. And we have plans to test other Da Vinci use cases in the future. This image illustrates Drummond approach to what we call full matrix testing. Full matrix testing is end-to-end testing of multi-party, multi-step FHIR workflows as they'll function in production. In the real world, a provider is not going to build point-to-point FHIR connections with hundreds of different payers. Many of these connections will be done through trusted networks, such as QHINs. The healthcare space has a long history of health information exchanges, clearinghouses, and similar entities that connect providers and payers for data exchange. Those intermediaries are going to play a key role in FHIR at scale as well. And that is what FHIRplace considers in our testing approach. Our testing is a multidimensional matrix where providers, payers, and intermediaries test with each other based on role, and through each other, they will identify potential issues and areas for resolution in these complex FHIR use cases. The result is proof that implementations are not only conformant to the standards, but interoperable with each other, giving the marketplace confidence and the implementer confidence that the product will work when it goes live. If you recall the problems identified in the market study, you can see how FHIRplace offers a solution to those concerns. The number one issue was partner readiness, and that was their interoperability risk most on their mind. Here, Drummond is managing the partner matching process, taking away that risk. 50% said they did not have access to testing partners. With FHIRplace, we are doing structured test events for specific use cases, giving all the parties access to testing partners that can test with them. Many cited that connectathons don't adequately prepare their teams. While a good starting point, they don't get them ready for go live. We're offering continuous testing through FHIRplace, letting them test throughout their product lifecycle so that they can be assured that their product will work in the real world. And finally, development cycles need ongoing testing. We're using real systems, real organizations, realistic environments, not point-in-time tests. These are ongoing, meaning that you can make changes to the product, come back and verify those, that this still works. We have conducted a FHIRplace pilot on payer-to-payer data exchange, and we are currently testing EPA. When we talk with organizations that are part of our testing about why they have engaged with FHIRplace, it comes down to three main things. The first is risk reduction, catching interoperability issues before production deployment, not after their customers or another trading partner finds them. Second, time savings. They don't need to independently coordinate testing partners. Drummond handles the matching for them. And third, confidence, being able to demonstrate that they validated their system with real partners before go live. That's a meaningful differentiator in a use case like EPA, where the stakes for the industry are just so high. Now that you have an understanding of FHIRplace, I'm going to turn it over to Timothy Bennett to demonstrate the FHIRplace product itself.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm excited to show a demonstration of FHIRplace. First, before we do that, I want to just quickly go over the architecture of Drummond's approach to testing FHIR at scale with FHIRplace. The thing I want to really call attention to is at the top of this diagram, you see on the right payer systems, and on the left you see provider systems with their EHRs, and they are exchanging FHIR data through intermediaries. This is how we suspect and expect FHIR transactions are going to happen in the real world, is that providers and payers are going to be connected with each other through intermediaries. And these intermediaries are health information networks, health information exchanges, QHINs through the TEFCA networks, even maybe clearinghouses, other things like that. And Drummond's approach through FHIRplace, approach to testing FHIR at scale, is that intermediaries are at the center of the testing. In other words, we're not inserting tools of any kind in between the payers and the providers as they exchange FHIR data with each other. They're passing through intermediaries just as they would in the real world. And instead, Drummond's approach is to have connectors with the intermediaries in which we receive the stream of data, the transactions that are being passed through the intermediary between the providers and the payers. We receive that stream of data, and then we are able to analyze that data, determine which of Drummond's EPA test cases that we've defined that those transactions represent, and then based on which test case it is, then we can apply some evaluation logic to determine if those test cases were the kinds of data and outcomes that was expected for the test case that's defined in our test plan, and that the participants in these tests are exchanging with each other. We are also able, once we have that streamed data, those transaction data, we could then in addition to that, bring other tools, best of breed tools into place to further analyze the data. For instance, we could bring, if you look at the bottom of the screen there, you can see where we're saying that we could use the picky runtime to look at the data and maybe apply a data quality scoring to the data. So in addition to testing for interoperability, we could also provide the marketplace with data quality scoring. We could also call out to Inferno if we wanted to do actual conformance testing to see if they're conformant with the spec, in addition to the interoperability testing we're doing. And then one of the other things that we're going to need to do in order to test FHIR at scale is we're going to have to automate the testing. And so FHIRplace will use FHIR subscriptions in order to notify, for instance, provider systems, EHRs, to execute a test case automatically by just sending them a notification message that EHR under test has subscribed to. And then when they receive that notification, then they can automatically fire off a test case. That way we can begin to remove the burden of testing from the actual participants themselves and begin to automate the testing, do it automatically. And once we can do that, then we can really ramp up the kinds of tests. Instead of just doing 10s or 20s or 100 tests, we can begin to ramp up the testing to do thousands or even 10,000s of test cases, which we will need to do in order to test semantic interoperability. Anyway, I just wanted to just take a moment to really dig a little bit deeper into Drummond's architectural approach to testing and how our tooling comes into play with respect to how the transactions are going to actually flow in the real world. So now I'd like to give a demonstration of the tooling that we have on our end to help the test participants understand what the tests look like, what the outcomes are, and how we present the data with each other. What I'm sharing here is our FHIRplace home screen that the participants all can log in, whether they're a payer participant or a provider EHR participant. They all get a login to this. From the home page, before I get into showing you the test results, I want to demonstrate to you that as part of FHIRplace, we are building a repository of test data, synthetic test patients that we have crafted and curated for testing electronic prior authorization at scale. And these test patients are assigned to all the payers that are in our system. They're assigned to a health plan in their system under test. And then in turn, those patients that are part of that health plan are then distributed to all of the provider participants in our test, so that we're emulating the way patients interact with their provider, gets prior authorization requests from their health plan payer. So we generate these synthetic test patients. We also enable them to be edited by the participants in case they want to bring their own synthetic test patients, their own test patients. We allow them to go in and edit some of the details of the patients that reflects the ones that are already in their system. If they want to use the Drummond synthetic test patients, that's great. We provide ways for them to download their test patients in a FHIR bundle for them to easily be able to add them into their system instead of having to manually do that. Once they do this, once they have their test patients loaded, then they'll be using these same patients for all of the testing moving forward. Also unique to prior authorization is that we have a repository of service requests that are going to be used by the providers and EHRs. When they make these CRD requests, there'll be a service request that's associated with that, whether that's a chest x-ray or a lab panel or ultrasound, maybe an order for a wheelchair. These all have SNOMED codes associated with them or CPT codes. They're specified to the providers to use as part of the test cases that we've defined. And in that way, we're able to test the semantic interoperability and actually execute. And this is a very important part of FHIRplace, is that the payer systems are bringing their actual clinical medical policies, their prior authorization rule sets so that when they receive these CRD requests and pass prior authorization submissions, we're actually executing their actual health plan policies based on these SNOMED and CPT codes for the service requests. That's a very important part of the testing. Is we're not just testing the FHIR transport and the FHIR defined payloads are conformant and working. We're actually executing the real world business rules that are being triggered by these requests at the different payers and their responses. That's a big part of this. All right, so that underway, I want to wrap up here by demonstrating our interface of how we manage what we call a full matrix test. That's all of the providers with all of the payers so that we can truly determine if we have payer and provider agnostic interoperability so that we're not locked into just specific portals between one payer and one provider. We want to make sure that all the provider systems, all the EHRs can communicate interoperably with all the different payers. That's what we call a full matrix test. Here in this demo system, I've got a very fundamental matrix of just 2 providers and 2 fictitious payers. In our ongoing CRD test that we have going on right now, we have an 8x8 matrix. We've got 8 providers and 8 payer systems, and they're exchanging CRD requests with each other. We're testing interoperability. For this one, this is just a 2x2. We're showing the test matrix from the perspective of one of the participants. So right now I've got the Baptist provider selected, and this shows that with the 2 payers, Blue Circle and Elevation Health, these are the results of these different test cases that we run. This x-axis here across the top represents a test case between Baptist provider and these 2 payers. And I can change that and go to, what about Heritage provider? Here's the same test cases and the results of some of the tests that they have ran with these 2 same payers. I can also look at it from a payer perspective. So this is Blue Circle payer and the tests that they have ran against these 2 providers, Baptist and Heritage. Let me go back here and just bring up the Heritage provider. You can see here, this particular test case, our D1 test case represents the prefetched data. If I hover over it, I can see that they've actually tested this 3 times. The last test failed. That's what the sort of red coding is there. But if you go over here to another test case, our SA1 test case, that one passed. That's what green shows. And if I were to click into this one that failed, it'll load up a more detailed analysis of the test case. We have these different sort of steps in the process of the request and the response that goes back. And if we identify some areas where we received, like in this case, an unexpected response from Elevation Health, that there was a 500 server error, then this sort of feedback that goes back to the participants kind of shows them where in the process the error occurred. This will help diagnose and resolve that interoperability issue, and then they can come back and retest it again. And so let me go back to Heritage Provider. I want to show you sort of live this actually happening in real time. So let me go to Heritage. We're going to do the second test case between Heritage and Blue Circle. I'm simulating a message being sent now. If I refresh this, you'll see Heritage and Blue Circle. It's yellow right now. That means our backend system is processing it. It knows that a request was sent, and now it was waiting on the response to come back, the payer system, and now it determines that that response came back, and it said it passed. If I go into there, I can look through here. There's all greens. This particular test case was a MRI brain service, and we expected a 200 response, and that prior authorization was required and documentation was needed. That was exactly what the response that came back from the payer was. There's some other data down here that can be used in case we need to diagnose a issue and be able to figure out how to fix it. That's just a quick tour of Drummond's FHIRplace. We're excited to grow and scale this testing over time.